Hey everybody, it's me Chris. I'm back over here in the kitchen, and today I'm making turkey meatloaf. Really delicious, healthy version of meatloaf. Take a look at what I got here. So I got over here for my gravy, I'm going to make a simple gravy. I got 2 tablespoons of flour, 1 bouillon cube, that's a chicken flavored bouillon, 2 tablespoons of butter. I have 2 cups of water. Alright, for my vegetables, I have bell peppers, 1 zucchini, some white button mushrooms. I already washed these with a wet paper towel and wiped them off, and I took out the stems. I got 2 onions. I'm not going to use these all. I'm going to save a little bit of onion for my gravy. And I got, this is 1 giant clove and 1 medium clove of garlic. And I'll save a small amount of that for my gravy. I'm using the ground turkey here. This is 2.5 pounds. And I got 4 slices of white bread. I'm going to use this in place of breadcrumbs, which is what's called a panade. I use that a lot in my meatballs. So I'm just going to cut these up and I'll soak it in some milk, and that'll be our bread component. First thing I got to do is start prepping my vegetables. Okay, so I just got some extra virgin olive oil here in my cast iron skillet, and I'm going to start chopping the vegetables. I'm going to put them right into the pan. I'll start with the bell peppers. These are large. I don't need all of it, so I'm probably going to use half of each, and I'm just going to cut down along the rib. And what I want here is nice long strips. I'm looking for a pretty fine dice, so I'm going to cut along like this and then down across to get a nice fine dice. Okay, so that's half of each of the bell peppers. That's going to give me some nice color and flavor. I'm just going to throw the green ones into the pan and turn this on to medium heat. The mushrooms next, and I start with the peppers and mushrooms because the peppers take longer to saute, and the mushrooms have a lot of moisture. I want to cook out that moisture, so I'm just going to chop down. I'll make some thin slices here on the mushrooms, and then I'll come in the other way just to make small bite-sized pieces. Stir in my mushrooms and let these start to cook down a little bit. For my onion, I like to cut off the ends, cut it in half. I'll peel out the outside layer. And again, just looking for a small dice. So I'm going to make two cuts here, not going all the way through. And then come down on top. Nice fine dice, and then at the end I turn it and finish cutting. I don't need the other onion. This is about a cup and a half. I'm just going to take a little bit on the side here. I'll use that for my gravy. Add the rest of the onions right to the pan. For my garlic, I just cut off the stem end, and I want a really fine mince on this, so I'll just give it a smash and take it out of the paper. I got 3 nice cloves of garlic here, and I'm just going to smash them again, make sure they're nice and smashed, and then I'm going to start just run my knife through and keep going until I get a fine dice. My garlic is minced. I just want a tiny bit for my gravy later, not too much. Alright, so before I add my garlic, I just want to add a little bit more of extra virgin olive oil. And that's because there's not a lot of fat in the turkey meat. So this mixture is going to help provide nice moisture and flavor for it. And I'm going to add my first bit of seasoning. A nice pinch of kosher salt. And some fresh cracked pepper. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to stir this. And I lowered my heat while I was chopping. So I'm going to turn it up now to medium-high. I'll just add my garlic. And now I'll chop my zucchini. So I'm just going to cut the ends off here. And this is a pretty large zucchini. I'm not sure if I'll need it all. But I cut it in half and then half again. And what I want is some small bite-sized pieces. So I'm going to cut thin strips similar to what I did with the bell pepper. And I'll just use my knife to run it down and make small pieces. A little bit thicker, so what you could do is just carefully run your knife down like that, and then cut strips again, so you know you have small enough pieces. You're looking for about a 1/4 inch piece here. Now I'll put this right into my pan. I want to saute this for about maybe 5 minutes, just till the vegetables are nice and tender. So this looks good. I'm just going to transfer this to a nice large mixing bowl and let it cool before I add my turkey meat. So while the vegetables cool, I'll get my bread going here. And this is where you want to use, especially use the ends of the bread that nobody wants. Use it. I use this a lot for, this is called a panade. I use this for meatballs a lot. Use it for meatloaf. I'm just going to cut this up into not too small pieces. I'll throw it in a bowl here. And I'm just going to pour in some milk and let this soak for a little bit. Okay, so when the vegetables have cooled, just make a little well in the middle here. And then you're going to add 2 eggs, and that's just going to help bind everything together. I'm just going to mix those up a little bit. Now I'm going to add the ground turkey. And now for my bread that's been soaked in the milk. It's all very, very moist. And just squeeze out a little bit of the excess milk. Just like that. And then you can just mince it up a little bit and add it to your meatloaf. Okay, now I'm just going to add some seasoning here. A generous pinch of kosher salt, some cracked pepper, and that's it on the seasoning. These vegetables that we have in there are going to add a tremendous amount of flavor. So you don't need to complicate it. Just salt and pepper, and I'm going to start to mix this with my fork. Switch to a spatula. I want to make sure that I get everything up off the bottom and get this really well incorporated. And this looks pretty good. And I'm going to bake this on a sheet pan, but first I want to put a little bit of non-stick spray. And the reason I do it on the sheet pan is because I want to get a lot of surface area. I want to get a nice crispy top here. So I'm just going to pour this out onto my pan into a nice high mound. And I'll show you how to finish shaping it. Alright, so now to shape this, I'm going to take a little bit of, and I got some extra virgin olive oil here. I'm just going to pour some on my hands so that this meat doesn't stick to me, because it's very, very moist. And I'm just going to bring it together by hand and form a nice loaf. And you don't want it too high, because again, you want some surface area. You want it to get nice and crispy. And make it nice and smooth on top. Alright, so this looks good. I got a nice shape there. And then the last thing I want to do, I want to drizzle the top with some extra virgin olive oil. And that's going to also add some flavor and help get a nice crispy top. I'm going to put this in the oven and bake it at 350 degrees. And it's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour. But I really recommend, you got to have an instant read thermometer. It's got to be 165 degrees to make sure that it's cooked through. So I'm going to put it in the oven, and then when it's done, when it's cooked through, I'm going to turn the broiler onto the oven just for about 5 minutes to get the top really nice and crispy. Okay, so while my meatloaf bakes, I want to make my gravy. I'm going to turn on the power here to medium heat, and I want to start to melt my butter. I got a small saucepan here. And then while that happens, I'm going to take my bouillon cube, and you got to read the instructions. Sometimes it's 1 cube for 1 cup of liquid. This one is 1 cube for 2 cups of liquid. So I'm going to put this in the microwave, and I want to boil this water and dissolve that bouillon cube a little bit before I add it to the gravy. It's just about melted, and I saved that little bit of onion and garlic. I'm going to add that, and I'm also going to add just a pinch of salt and some pepper. I'm just going to cook the onions and garlic for a little bit, and it smells really, really good. I just want to get them softened up a little bit, and then I'll add my flour. So my flour goes in, and I'm going to combine it with the butter, and this is what's called a roux. This is the base of a lot of sauces, gravies, cheese sauce for macaroni and cheese. I just want to cook this for just a couple of minutes. Alright, so this looks pretty good. You can see it's starting to turn just slightly brown. You want to be careful you don't burn it. And now I'm going to add my water and my bouillon cube. I'll bring this to a boil. Alright, so once this starts to boil, it should start to thicken. And I'll just lower the heat and let it simmer for a few minutes. Alright, so this started to thicken. I mean, it's a little bit thin for me. So what you can do, is, if that happens, is just add another little pinch of flour. But make sure you cook it for another 2 or 3 minutes to cook out that raw flour taste. This is nice and thick. And the last thing I want to add is some more fresh cracked pepper. And that's the secret to some really good gravy. Alright, so the gravy's done. And you notice I just kept whisking throughout the process. I want to make sure I try everything I can do to avoid lumps. I'm just going to put this right back into my glass container. So my meatloaf just came out of the oven. And you can see it's got a nice crispy top. I broiled it afterwards for a few minutes. And you'll get a lot of moisture and some of the fat that came out of here. You could just move that away with a spatula like this. And I'm just going to let this cool for about 10 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 spatulas like this. And I'm going to transfer this over to the cutting board. Okay, so once the meatloaf cools for a few minutes, you can start to make some slices. Alright, so I'm plating up my meatloaf, and you can see how nice it looks with all the colors from the vegetables. It's going to be very moist because of that as well. I got some mashed potatoes here, and I got my homemade gravy. I'll just pour some right on top of the meatloaf. And then my mom always made a little pool of gravy for us, and we're ready to try it. All right, we'll give this a try. It's so good. Really loaded up with flavor because of what we did with the sauteed vegetables. It's moist, the top is crunchy, and the homemade gravy is delicious. If you've never made your own gravy, you really got to try it. It only takes 10 minutes. And it really takes you back to your childhood. I hope you like the recipe. That's turkey meatloaf. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching the video.